Good morning, guys. Today we will discuss about the Belmont Report. After Second World War, there were lots of unethical trial happened. Due to seeing this, all this severe condition, the Belmont Report has prepared. In Belmont reports, there were three things were measured, like respect to the person, justice, and beneficence. So, in further slide, we will discuss all these things in a brief manner. Now, topic to be covered: history perspective, response to research abuses, National Research Act in 1974, boundaries between practice and research, basic ethical principle, applications of the general principle, the Belmont Report. Historical perspectives. Nuremberg War Tribunal in 1947. Criminal proceeding against the 23rd leading German physician and administrators are for their willing participation in war crimes and crimes against the humanity. Horrifying, the procedure were conducted for research purpose on thousands of concentration camp prisoners without their informed consent. The next one was syphilis study in Tuskegee, 1932 to 1972, as per of a research project conducted by the US Public Health Service. 600 low-income African American male and 400 of whom were infected with the syphilis were monitored for 40 years. Free medical examination were given. However, the participants were not told about their diseases, even though a proven cure penicillin became available in the 1950s. The study continued until 1972, with participants being denied treatment. In some cases, when the participants were diagnosed as having syphilis by other physician researcher invented to prevent the treatment. Many participants died of syphilis during the study. The study was stopped in 1973 by the US Department of Health, Education and Welfare only after its existence was published and it became a political embarrassment. In the continuation, next unethical trial was thalidomide use. The thalidomide was used in 1950 to combat the unpleasant symptoms associated with the pregnant woman. At the time it was being used, it was not usually disclosed to patient that the drug was investigational and still in the testing phase of the regulatory process. After women in Europe, Canada, and the US were treated with the drug, it was covered that the drug had the tetra- teratogenic effect, causing the severe deformities in a fetus. Thalidomide was soon banned worldwide. Unfortunately, approximately 12,000 babies were born with the severe deformities due to the thalidomide. The next one is radiation experiment, which was conducted in 1940 to 1960, approx 20 years. US officials studied the effect of radiation through the experiment on hospital patients, pregnant women, mentally disabled children, and enlisted military personnel. Few of the participants of the experiment gave informed consent. Most had no knowledge that they were being subjected to radioactive element. Project officially authorized that the wartime experiment to establish health and safety standards for the thousands of workers in atomic plant. Response to research abuses. Nazi atrocities in World War II drew attention to the lack of international standard on research with human participants and lead to the formulation of the Nuremberg Code in 1948. The thalidomide disaster led to the absorption of the Kefauver amendment in 1962 to the Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act, requiring drug manufacturers to prove to the FDA and safety and efficaciness of their product, and physician to obtain informed consent from potential subject before the administering investigational medicine. The Declaration of Helsinki, drafted by the World Medical Association in 1964, mostly recently updated in 2000, built on the Nuremberg Code and is the basis of good clinical practice used today. The National Research Act in 1974 passed primarily in the response to the syphilis study, codified the requirement that human participants in research must be protected and set the stage of the issuing of Belmont Report. National Research Act in 1974. Due to the publicity from the syphilis study, the National Research Act of 1974 was passed. The National Research Act created the National Commission for Protection of Human Subject of Biomedical and Behavioral Research. The Commission's charge was to identify the basic ethical principles that should underlie the conduct of biomedical and behavioral research involving human and participants, and to develop the guidelines which should be followed to assure that such research is conducted in accordance with those principles. National Commission for the Protection of Human Subject of Biomedical and Behavioral Research. Carrying out the commission prepared the Belmont Report in 1979. The Belmont Report is the statement of basic ethical principle and guideline that provide an analytical framework to guide the resolution of the ethical problem assigning from the research with the human subject. The framework of the Belmont Report is presented in three discussion topics: boundaries between the practice and research, basic ethical principle, and the applications. Boundaries between the practice and research. The distinction between the practice and research is buried often because they occur together. The IRB must ensure that the researcher and the participant distinguishes practices from research in both social science and the biomedical research. They minimize the potential for the therapeutic misconception when one behaves. The purpose of clinical research is to treat rather than to gain the knowledge. Respect for person. Respect for person. Individuals should be treated as an autonomous agent. Individuals with the diminished autonomy are entitled to protection. Beneficence, do not harm, maximum possible benefits, and minimize the potential harm. Justice, fair distribution of the burden and benefit of the research. Protect for person. Treat individual as an autonomous person. Allow the individual to choose for themselves. Person with limited autonomy need the additional protection, even to the point of the excluding them from activity that may harm them. The extent of the protection should depend upon the risk of harm and the likelihood of the benefits. The judgment that any individual lacks autonomy should be periodically re-evaluated and will vary across the situation. Beneficence. The IRB should determine whether the risks to subject are responsible in relation to part anticipated benefits. Obligation of benefits affected both the researcher and society. Investigators are requested to give forethrough on the maximization of benefits and reduction of risk that may be involved in the research. The society should recognize the longer term benefits and risks that may result from the improvement of knowledge and from the development of novel medical, physiological, and social process and procedure. Justice. Treat people fairly. Do not exploit those who are readily available or malleable. Fair distribution of the risk and the benefits of research based upon the problem and issues under the investigation. Consideration of the three general principles in the conduct of research lead to the consideration of informed consent process, risk-benefit assessment, selection of research participant, application of respect for the person. Informed consent process, information. Does the consent from provide all the information necessary for the individual to make a reasoned decision? Comprehension is the consent from the crafted in language understandable to the potential participant. Voluntariness does the consent from the form and clearly indicate that the participant in the research is voluntary. What additional protection can be in place to protect those with limited autonomy? How to determine whether one lacks the autonomy to make a reasoned decision? Application of the risk and benefits. Assessment of risk and benefits. Risk refer to the probability of harm. When the considering risk, one should consider both the probability and the severity of the envisioned harm, while the term benefit refers to something that promote the health, well-being, or welfare. What are the risks of harm to participant? Consider physical, physiological, social, and the economic harm. Are risk justify? Can they be minimized? Can the researcher designed to improve to minimize the risk and maximize the benefits? What are the benefits to the participant, to the society? Next, application of the justice. Selection of subject. Is the potential subject pool appropriate for the research? Is it appropriate to involve the vulnerable population, example, economically disadvantaged, limited cognitive capacity in the research, or are they being enrolled because it is the convenient or because they are easily manipulated as a result of their situation? Are the recruitment procedure fair and imperial? Are the inclusion and exclusion criteria fair and appropriate? Belmont Report, finally, although never officially adopted or endorsed by the Congress or DHEW, the Belmont Report has served as an ethical framework for protection of human subjects for over 25 years. Many of its recommendations have been incorporated in DHHS Title 45 CFR Part 46 and FDA Title 21 CFR Part 50. References. I have used these references for detailed study. You can also use these references. So there are lots of knowledge you can get about the Belmont Report and the unethical trial and Capper Harris and lots of unethical trial and what kind of guideline prepared after the World War II, and also you can find the amendment, what kind of amendment have prepared after the World War II due to the unethical trials. So I have used these references. You can also go through these references. Now we will question for the practices. First question is, what is syphilis study in Tuskegee during 1932 to 1972? In this study, you have to include about the syphilis disease. What is the medicine available over there in 1950s for the syphilis disease? And what kind of problem they have to face, what was the unethical procedure they have to face. So you have to include all these things in this syphilis studies Tuskegee experiment. Okay, and the next one is the Belmont Report. I have already taught you in this PPT what is Belmont Report. In Belmont Report, you have to mention all the three things like justice, beneficence, and respect of the person in a detailed manner. The third one is National Research Act. So you have to discuss about the National Research Act. What was the act prepared during 1974, and you have to brief this one. And the fourth one is Nuremberg War Tribunal. And in giving the answer of this question, you have to prepare uh, about the Nuremberg War Tribunal. What is Nuremberg War Tribunal? And after that, what was the Nuremberg Code? So there in Nuremberg Code there were 10 basic principles. So you have to also mention that basic principle in this answer. So these are some questions I have given in this PPT for your practices. Go through it. If you have any queries or any problem, so you are always free to ask me. Thank you.